Hey guys, welcome to the REI USA Creative Finance webinar today. We're going to talk about subject 2, the basics, what it is, how it works. Good to see you, Christina, Colleen. Good to see you guys on here today. If you have any questions, just type them in the chat and go on with that. Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all. If, like I said, if y'all have any questions, just drop those in. I'm going to pop on there, and I think there's a chat box in here. I'm not best at working with the webinar feature of Zoom right now, but we're going to do the best we can to get going. So anyway, let's get rolling on this thing. Thing figured out, and we'll okay, we're gonna try to share a screen here, show you guys some slides. Okay, if you guys can see that, please let me know where you guys are from, and if y'all want to drop that information in here, let me know where you're located, and talk a little bit about your area. I've operated in several states over the last 20 years. Done a lot of investing in Georgia, some of the Midwest states. If y'all want to drop in your name, where you're from, that sort of thing. Okay, so we'll get rolling here. Thing moved around. Righty. So we're talking about buying property subject to existing financing today. Scottsdale, Arizona, excited. Yeah, we're super excited for the Palooza as well, Colleen. We sent out an email to let everybody know we're converting that to a virtual event just because of COVID. It's just so bad here in Louisiana. Jody and I are actually just getting over COVID right now. South Carolina, driving but listening. Okay, well, be safe out there, Christina, while you're driving. We'll try not to talk about anything too exciting while you're behind the wheel. So we're going to talk about subject 2 today. That's been the focus of my real estate investing for the last 12 years or so. When I got started way back in 1999 with my Carlton Sheets infomercial course, I was pretty much a transaction engineer. And, we tried to do something with pretty much everything that came through. Whether that was flipping, rehabbing, sandwich lease options, we pretty much tried it all. And through that first 10 years or so, we discovered that pretty much nothing beats taking over the payments on a property, that you didn't have to actually borrow the money from yourself. And then, of course, your disposition can be anything you want. Now, if you're a landlord person, sub 2 works for you because you can certainly rent the property out if you like. Now, we found that seller financing worked best for us as far as a disposition. We didn't really care to be landlords and just preferred to get rid of those properties that way. So basically what we did was we would continue to take over payments on houses and just sell those things with seller finance. So you can get a larger down payment. You can get a better monthly cash flow because we find that consistently we can get anywhere from $100 to $200 a month more in payments than we can on market rent. And then, of course, there'll be a back end payment as well when your buyer refinances. So let's go ahead and get rolling. Maybe some of you guys have already heard of subject 2. Maybe you're already familiar with it. For some of the people that may not be, this is sort of a basic what subject 2 is and how it works. Let me tell you before we get started, we've got a ton of free tools to help you. Sub2deals.com is our website. We have products, tons of articles, things to help you there. You can go to sub2coolstuff.com and actually download over a dozen different tools to help you. Amortization programs, cost to sell calculators, business plans, negotiating ebooks on how to better negotiate your deals, just all sorts of things. They're all absolutely free. So go there get signed up and pick those up. Our Sub2 forum, which is actually a link to our free Facebook group. We've got over 6,000 people in there that are talking Sub2 all the time. So you're certainly welcome to join our group there. Our Sub2 podcast is our weekly podcast that we do with well-known teachers, real investors, and just on all sorts of topics with subject to and creative financing. And of course, our YouTube channel, /Sub2 Deals. We release our podcast there in video form. Our Goat Talk segments, which is our Facebook Lives that we do in our Facebook Live group, and also some helpful tips and training videos there as well. So you guys feel free to check any of that stuff out. Now, today what we're going to cover is what is subject to or Sub2. We're going to talk about the advantages of using this method, the risk associated with it. Believe it or not, yes, there are risks with most things. Even good things, there's some risk involved, and there's some risk involved with subject to, although you can manage those, and we're going to talk about that today as well. Is subject to legal? You'll hear anybody from even attorneys to real estate agents tell you subject to is not legal, but absolutely it is. We've been doing it for years and years. Thousands and thousands of other investors have. Ever since people have been borrowing money, there have been people taking over those payments. We're going to talk about that. Where to find Sub2 deals? There are a lot of places to find them. That is a question. And then, of course, you're always going to have somebody come in and say, well, you don't really find Sub2 deals. You create those. And that is true. Anybody with a loan is a potential Sub2 seller. The importance of marketing. It is super important that people know who you are, what you do. And we're going to talk about that. Sub2 is not just for pretty houses, although today we do focus on pretty houses. You can Sub2 houses that need rehab or fix up or pretty much anything out there. We're going to show you some pretty nasty ones that we've done in the past. And in Sub2 today, we're going to talk about some deals that we did in the very beginning, but we're also going to talk about some stuff that we're doing right now and how all that stuff works. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about me if you're not familiar with William, and tell you a little bit why I am qualified to teach this subject today. I worked in the restaurant industry for over 20 years. I got started as a dishwasher in a Pizza Hut and moved through the ranks. By 1999, I found myself as director of operations over the state of Georgia for a fast food chain. I was working 70 hours plus a week and just never really had time for my family. I made a good income, but I just didn't have time to enjoy life. And I was desperate to find something to help me do that. One night, in just sheer desperation at 2 o'clock in the morning, I saw a Carlton Sheets infomercial selling his course and how anyone can buy real estate. You don't have to have money or credit. All you have to do is follow step-by-step instruction. And so I said, hey, it sounds simple. I can probably do it. So I reached over, picked up the phone, and ordered the course. I bought my first investment property a month later. Now, how did that happen? Gee, because I talk to investors all the time that have been looking at real estate or trying to get in real estate for months or years and haven't done anything. The biggest thing I can tell you, the biggest key to success in this business is to take action. And taking action gets confused by some people with things like setting up LLCs or printing business cards. If you want to buy a house tomorrow, what you need to be doing today is talking to sellers, because that's the only way you can buy a house. You actually have to get out there and actually make contact with these people and make those offers scared because you're just getting started. But hey, sometimes you have to get started scared. And that's what I did. I took Carlton's recommendation and I cold called sellers who had properties listed in the newspaper. These are absolute worst people to call because most of them are too cheap to pay a realtor, and they're actually paying for an ad in the newspaper. So I'm telling you, they are the worst. But that's what I learned on. I stuck with it and actually bought my first property a month later. I decided after I bought my first couple of houses that I was going to quit my job in a year. And guess what? We did that. We set a plan to buy a certain number of houses over the course of that year to get close to replacing our job income, and did that. So for the next 10 years, I worked in real estate. I bought houses, I sold houses, I flipped them, rehabbed them, did everything. And then in 2010, retired and moved to Belize. And hung around down there for a couple of years and got bored and started buying houses remotely. And continued to do that for the next several years. And then about 16, 18 months ago, moved back to the United States, got married, and the rest is history. So far to date, we've taken the deed to over 500 properties and done about 600 deals over the last 20 years. I've never been a big proponent of buying 20 houses a month. I think that's a lot like creating a job for yourself and not something that I'm too interested in. I'm more of a focus on having a really good life. So we teach our students today, one house a month will set you financially free, and that you can create an annual income of over $600,000 a year by one house a month. That's a presentation for another day. We call it the 12 Houses to Freedom. We also have a podcast on that if you'd like to check it out. But it's really simple. It's really simple to have a good life doing this, to be able to do pretty much whatever you want to do, and only buy one stinking house a month. There's nobody listening to this today that can absolutely do that. Okay, so let's get on with it. So what is buying property subject to? Well, when you buy a property subject to, you're purchasing it subject to the existing financing. And put very simply, this means that the loans or any other liens or encumbrances already on the property are going to stay there without any formal assumption on your part. The owner is going to deed the property to you. You're going to take the payment book and start making the payments or sending those in just like the former owner did when they were paying. It's really pretty simple. Any liens or encumbrances are going to stay there. You're going to take responsibility for those. If not legally, then certainly ethically. And you're just going to start making those payments just like the former owner did. Now, Christina has a question. Yeah, she says she's at a rest stop. Do you by chance have a sub-2 purchase agreement to share? I'll tell you, if you'll go to sub2coolstuff.com, there's not a purchase agreement there, but what there is a sub-2 addendum that will make any contract that you use sub-2 contract. It's magical. It works just like magic. When you attach it, any contract, whether that's a Board of Realtors contract, contract that you got from any other course or any other guru or teacher, bam, it just instantly makes it a sub-2 because it addresses what you're doing, that you're taking over payments. So yeah, go get that. It's absolutely free, and make any contract that you use a sub-2 contract. So anyway, as we said, you own the property in this situation, and the seller still owns the loan. Now, if you're like me, when I first learned about subject to, the first question that I had was, why in the world would anybody do that? Why in the world would anyone go out, get financing, and then just turn that financing over to me? If you're like me, at this point in time, I had bought a couple of personal residences. And if you've ever done that, you know the blood, sweat, and tears involved in that. And getting approval from the bank, sweating it out, making sure you've been approved, endless documents that they need to collect from you, just all sorts of stuff. Why would anybody do that and then just hand that off to me? Well, turns out there are a bunch of reasons. People getting a divorce, 50% of all marriages end in divorce today. That means there are thousands and thousands of divorces. No matter where you live, people are getting divorced each and every day. And in our society today, it in most cases involves two-income families to support making all the bills. So in a lot of cases, people are getting separated, they're getting divorced, they can't afford the house on their own, they need to sell. Job transfers, people in the military, they're a big target for us. VA loans. Veterans come in, they get transferred into this location, they go out, they buy a house, they put nothing down, they finance more than the purchase price because VA allows them to roll closing costs in. And if they get transferred in a very short period of time, chances are they don't have much, if any, equity. But they're getting another transfer now and they absolutely have to move. They don't have any choice in the matter. Those people are a lot of times very motivated to sell subject to. Death in the family, again, loss of income, tired landlords, especially today with COVID, when 11% plus, depending on the numbers that you read, of tenants are behind on payments. A lot of landlords, especially what I call accidental landlords, people that either inherited a house or couldn't sell their house when they built or bought a new one, so they just started renting it out. A lot of those people are super motivated. Lost a job, anything that causes them to not be able to make their payments, bought another house and need to sell. Really, there are as many reasons as there are sales. But there are many, many people out there that are perfectly open to selling, subject to if that is what you present to them. So. So once I understood what a sub-2 deal was and the potential for that, what happened? Well, of course, once I accepted the fact that probably was a possibility, I found my first sub-2 deal. Seller called us on a bandit sign. Now, I find that, interesting. If you talk about bandit signs and you talk about old school marketing, a lot of people will say, well, that stuff doesn't work today. Well, absolutely it does. That's why every time you go out driving, you see a million bandit signs. People use them because they work. They cost about $1 a piece. They're very inexpensive. You can put out a few or a lot. You should have a lot of flexibility with that. This particular property, this was a divorce situation. These people had only been married for about a year. It was a brand new home. She had moved out. He was making the payments currently, but knew that he couldn't do it ongoing. So he needed to do something. They owed about $104,000 at 7%. Remember, this was when I first got started. So this was a little while ago. And we bought that house subject to, we sold it on a land contract for $125,000. We collected a $13,000 down payment and financed the balance for our buyer. We only collected $161 a month in cash flow for 26 months, and our buyers refinanced us and we collected another $8,800. So our total profit over a 27-month period was almost $27,000 on a relatively low equity deal. Here's a copy. I tell you, when you first get started, you make all kinds of copies of all the checks that you get, and you should do that. But that was more money than I would make over 2 months at my job. So I was a super happy guy, as you can see with my first check, my first down payment. So yeah, I was loving it. Now, so what are the advantages of buying subject to? Well, number one, no banks are needed. You don't need a bank to buy as many houses as you want. If you decide that you want a $10,000 a month cash flow, because that's what you need to live the lifestyle that you want, and your average cash flow is about $500 per property, you don't need to buy but 20 houses. You don't need a bank to tell you that you can buy any of them. Number two, low and no closing cost, really. If you've ever bought a house, you know that you can pay thousands and thousands in closing costs and fees. And with subject to, that's just not necessary. You can close these transactions yourself or use a title company with minimal cost. Recording a deed really is about the only cost that you have, and that's very low. So you don't have those thousands of dollars in closing costs. You can close really quickly. We can close a sub-2 deal in, a day or two, literally, as long as we have time to do a walkthrough on the house, check title on the property, verify numbers with the bank. That's really all that we have to do. Good credit isn't needed. So if you've got the worst credit in the world, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to be looking at your credit. If you do have good credit, this loan isn't going to show up on your credit report. So you can go out and buy 100 houses if you want to and not show all that debt on your credit report. So your credit report stays pretty clean and it doesn't impact your credit score. Low homeowner interest rates. Now, I don't know about you, but even with really good credit, it's hard for an investor to get the very best interest rates. You may get 4%, 5%, 6%, but you're not going to get the 2.5%, 2.75% interest rates that homeowners can get. And that's what we're seeing today. And you can do that all day long by taking over payments. Owning the property with long-term financing means your exit possibilities are endless. A lot of times when investors finance, especially when they financed a bunch of property. The bank will only do short-term financing for them. That may be 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, but there is not a full amortization on that loan. And you don't have to worry about that when you're buying 30-year fixed rate seller finance stuff. You got a fully amortized loan that's going to be there until it pays off in full. That means you don't have to worry about long-term seller financing the property. You don't have to worry about those balloon payments. You can rent it out. You can live in it. You can do whatever you like. So all of that works out well. If you guys have any questions, like I said, just pop those in down there, and I'll be glad to answer those for you as we move along. A question you'll run into a lot is buying sub 2 legal? And, you know, the due on sale clause is usually the biggest thing most people point to. Now, understand that the due on sale clause doesn't make the transaction illegal. The due on sale clause gives the banks the right, at their option, to call the loan due upon transfer of title. Now, this is a contract stipulation in the agreement between your seller and the bank. All it says is it puts the seller on notice that if they transfer title to that property, the bank can accelerate the loan. It even says at their option. It doesn't say they definitely will do it. This doesn't make the transaction illegal. It's simply, when the seller sells to you, they're violating, excuse me, that contract stipulation. It doesn't make it illegal. Nobody's going to go to jail. It's just something that, you know, the seller needs to be, informed about. And we do make sure that they understand that's a possibility in our disclosures in our contract. If anyone tries to tell you sub 2 is illegal, just ask them about line 203 or 503 on a standard HUD, where it clearly says existing loans taken subject to. That is right there out in the open. It's been on every HUD or Alta form since beginning of time. This is a common practice. Everybody knows about it. They understand how it works. It's not illegal to do at all. So where do we look for sub 2 deals? Now, as I said earlier, any seller with an existing loan is a potential sub 2 seller candidate, but there are some specific places where you're more likely to find someone who'll sell this way. MLS expired and soon to expire listings. A lot of these people needed to sell, and for some reason it didn't sell. They can be extremely motivated. Pre-foreclosures, now we don't have as many of those right now, although it looks like that is going to be stepped up pretty soon. But due to COVID, they have stopped a lot of the foreclosures. But when those things change, and we probably bought 60% of our houses through pre-foreclosures, so we're excited about seeing that potential come back. Bankruptcies, divorce, and tired landlords, we named those earlier as potential sellers. Real estate agents can be a source of leads if you can develop a relationship with these guys. Hey, Mr. and Miss Agent, do you ever run into people who don't have enough equity to list with you? If we can work something out where you can either refer them to me, we can pay you something, you won't miss out on that commission. We'll be glad to do that. If you have a listing that you haven't been able to sell for some reason, maybe we can step in and purchase that. So those are potentials. Mortgage brokers, 70% of the people that come in to a mortgage broker can't get qualified. Some of these people need to refinance because they need cash out of their house. Some of them are behind on payments and are trying to refinance to better their situation. They're also a great lead source for buyers who couldn't get financed. So that may need some alternative forms of financing. Wholesalers are an excellent opportunity. They market like mad to get in touch with people that are trying to sell their house, and then they make them offers for 60 cents on the dollar. A lot of people can't accept that offer because they owe more than that. So making contact with wholesalers, saying, hey, let me have your trash leads. If I can turn it into something, I can pay you a referral fee. And most of these guys will work with you for anywhere from $500 to a few $1,000s per lead. So if you can get your lead cost, at $3,000 per lead and take over payments, it's well worth it. But remember, almost any deal can be a sub 2 deal. All you need is a motivated seller and an existing mortgage. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. That's super important part of your business. People need to know what you do. We've done many forms of marketing over the years, as we talked about. Magnetics, we've used magnetics, get that out there on your car. Uh, Business cards, we've used a ton of those throughout the years. I've even done things like actual billboards and things like that. I had my old truck painted up as a kind of a traveling sort of billboard and that sort of thing. Uh, Bandit signs. You think people don't use bandit signs? This is what it looked like when I ran my real estate club in Macon. All of my guys use bandit signs. And interestingly enough, we all bought houses. So do these things work? Absolutely, they do. Uh, some key questions to determine motivation once your marketing is starting to work. Why are you selling? When we get people on the phone, we always try to find out what their pain points are, what their motivation is, because I'm telling you, the deal is in the story all the time. That's important to remember. Why are you selling? Well, we're looking for things like, well, we're getting a divorce and we need to sell the house. We're getting a job transfer. We're behind on our payments. And that sort of thing. We're looking for pain points. Why are they super motivated to sell? What are you hoping to accomplish by selling your house? Well, debt relief, or maybe they're looking to get they're moving out of town. They need to sell this house so they can get that done. How soon would you like to get this done? That's a key question, because if they say, well, there's no big rush, then they've gone way down on the motivation meter. But if they need to get it done right now, again, they're going to be really high on the motivation level. If I were to make the payments on the house for you until I could find a buyer, would that work for you? Now, what did I just ask them? Basically just asked them if I could take over subject to. But I didn't use the phrase subject to. I didn't use any investor technical terms. I kept it very simple and easy to understand. And that's key with people that you're talking to. By the time I asked this question, already know that this would probably work. If you're not using a program like PropStream, you really should get out there and get one. PropStream is a program that'll let you run comps. It'll let you, if you're a rehabber, it'll let you estimate rehabs. It'll give you all types of information on a property as far as how long someone's owned it, how much they paid for it, what their mortgage payments are, how long it's financed for. Anytime we have a lead, the first thing we do is pop that address into PropStream. Generally, before I even pick up the phone and get on the phone with the seller, I already know how much they owe, what their payments are. I know if this is a deal that would probably work for us. Based on whether or not they'll let us take over the payments. So really take a look at PropStream. It's great. I think every investor should have it. But I'm going to know before I ask that question if it'll probably work based on what I already know about the property, what they owe, what the payments are, and then what their pain points are. If it's a case of a seller needing some cash, we can probably write them a check because we're going to turn around and sell that thing with seller financing and collect a down payment from our buyer. So, but like I said, that's another presentation for another day on the creative finance side on the dispositions. But these are super important questions to get answered from your seller as soon as you get them on the phone. So let's talk about some of the other things you can do with a sub-2 deal. You can flip a sub-2. Sometimes the payments don't work out. Sometimes, here's a good example of that. This gentleman was needing to sell his house. His wife had already been transferred out of state. And I did a walkthrough on the house. It was a house in probably $130,000, $140,000 neighborhood. And he only owed $89,000, but he had a horrible 13% interest rate loan with Bank of America that made the payments more than the house would cash flow. But he did have a low mortgage balance. There was some equity to be had there. So we went ahead and got it under contract and just sold it with sweat equity to a young couple, 30 days later. So we really flipped. This was really a wholesale flip that we flipped to a retail buyer and made about $14,000 on that in 38 days. So just because the payments don't work, subject to doesn't have to be a buy and hold. It can be something that you can flip, but the numbers will have to work as they did in this case. There was enough equity to give those guys some sweat equity. It needed paint, it needed carpet, it needed a couple of minor repairs. But we were able to leave enough equity in that to make it attractive for them and still make a quick flip on it and make some money. Now, this was an interesting deal that we did. This lead came from my attorney. He called me one day and said, William, I'm doing an estate for a lady. Her mom just died and left her a house, and she's got this little house that that needs some work that, you know, she's really not interested in. You want to go take a look at it. So we did that. This was probably a $65,000, $70,000 house that the lady, she had been living with her mom, caring for her for the last several years, and just had a house full of dogs and cats, basically. The house needed a good bit of work. It was in pretty pitiful shape. She had owned it for 25 years, only 5 years left on the loan. So she only owed about $14,000. But literally, she just wanted to walk away from it. She had just inherited a free and clear house, and she just didn't want it. So we got it under contract for the loan balance, and we sold it the next day to the next door neighbor who just didn't know that it was available to buy. He walked over the day we were looking at the house, and he said, hey, I wish I'd known this house was for sale. I would have bought it. And I said, well, hey, you still can. So we literally flipped it to him the next day. So we only had this house for about 24 hours. But he had to go in and do a good bit of work to this house. I'll show you guys some of these pictures. Like I said, the lady hadn't lived in the house for several years. It was just full of dogs and cats. And this is what happens when you let several dogs and cats just occupy an otherwise empty house for a long time. So don't do that. It was pretty rough. Now, I gave you guys an example earlier of how sub-twos from MLS listings can work. We generally go in and target MLS listing properties that have been on the market for at least 90 days, that are vacant, that have had a price reduction, and that have some notes indicating motivation. And this house met those criteria. It was in excellent shape. It had been listed for 3 or 4 months. It was vacant, and it said seller motivated, bring all offers. They had this property listed a little bit over market value. They had just dropped the price a little bit. I sent the guy a postcard and said, hey, I see that your house has been listed for a while and hasn't sold. If you're not able to get a sale and your listing expires, please call us, because, you know, we're looking to buy right now. We really, we can buy quickly. So he called us up, and what we found out in the conversation was that the guy only owed $48,000 on this house. He only had 7 years left on a 15-year note. And he had moved out of town to take a new job, and had spent pretty much everything he had painting the house, putting in new carpet, making it really nice, like the realtor said to do. And he just really needed to get it sold. He couldn't continue to make the payments. So we offered him $3,000 to take over his payments, and he said, no, I can't do that, but I'll take $3,500. So we said, okay. We overnighted this guy a check and closed the deal. We relisted the house. We slashed the price, relisted it for $91,000, and flipped this thing for a gross profit of over $30,000. It was really amazing. A lot of times sellers won't tell their agent what they've really got going on. And if you take the time to talk to people and try to find out what's happening, you can find a deal. Like I told you guys earlier, the deal is almost always in the story. You can also rehab sub-2 deals. Use the sub-2 as a temporary form of financing. Either use a private lender or your own money to do the fix-up and then list it and resell it. This was a pre-foreclosure. The seller called us on a 50-cent postcard. He had owned the house for 15 years. He was 6 months behind on payments of $411 a month. He owed $30,000. He wanted $3,000 cash to move. and the house needed paint, carpet, a little bit of fix up. We gave $4,800 to the bank to bring the loan current. We wrote the seller a check for $3,000. We fixed it up and we sold it for $82,000. So another $30,000 profit in about 90 days. So you can certainly use sub-2 as some short-term financing if you want to fix up and flip property. So creating cash flow for life. Let me give you an example of more of what we're doing today. We don't do rehabs anymore. We don't really do flips anymore. We target very specific properties that in most cases, not all, but in most cases, we target properties that are 10 years old or less, that are in very good condition, that have excellent long-term fixed rate financing. That's what we're looking for today. And as a result, these are the deals that we do now. Now, here's an example of a pre-foreclosure deal that we did. This guy was a few months behind on his payments. It was a $195,000 property that we bought for the loan balance of $154,000, 7 years into a 30-year term. We paid $3,000 to reinstate. As I recall, he was, I think, 4 months behind. We wrote him a check for $5,000, and then we paid a couple of $1,000s to clean the place up. Now, our payments are $795 a month. We sold it on a contract for deed for $199. Our buyer gave us $15,000 down, and we financed the remaining $184 at 8% on a 40-year note. Now, here's a good tip for you guys today. If you're seller financing, finance on a 40-year note. 40-year notes are becoming more popular even with the mainstream lenders now. We've been doing this for about 10 years, though, before they were super popular. But it's going to increase your profit dramatically. And if you'll just check those numbers out on an amortization sheet, you'll see what it'll do to your profit over the extra 2 or 3 years or whatever that you're financing is really amazing. The numbers go dramatically. But our buyer's payments are $1,279. That gives us $484 a month in cash flow. And if our buyer refinances in 36 months, our payoff at that time will be around $41,000. So a profit breakdown on this particular house, we got $5,000 up front. That was our $15,000 down payment minus the $10,000 it cost us to get in. We'll collect $18,000 in cash flow. That's 36 months at $484, and a $41,000 back end. When they pay us off, their payoff will be $182,000, and ours will be $141,000. So our total profit on this pre-foreclosure deal off of a postcard is going to run around $64,000. Now, that's assuming that our buyer will refinance in about 3 years, which is what we try to target. A lot of people think that you can't make money on no equity deals, and this is a fantastic example of a no equity deal that will turn into a sizable profit. We got this deal from actually a handyman that used the Deal Machine app. If you're using an app like that where you can recruit people that drive around all day doing whatever, if they see a house that meets your criteria, just take a picture. It'll come into your folder or your file there, your desktop, and you can evaluate them and decide if you want to pursue it. That's what happened here. Now, this was a $120,000 vacant property in like new condition. Remember, I told you guys, the deal's always in the story. These people, the guy was in the military. They had bought this house several months prior. Actually, it was about a year ago. And he had gotten deployed right after they bought the house. So she had never even really moved into the house. She stayed with her mom since he got deployed. There was just a few boxes and a few pieces of furniture in the house. And sometime during the year, they decided they were going to divorce. So they never actually moved into the house. So this was just perfect timing. My instructions to this particular guy was that I'm looking for houses in a certain neighborhood. If they're in good condition and they're vacant, take a picture, send it to me. I'll do the research. And then all I did was reach out with a mailer saying, hey, I noticed your house was vacant. What are your plans? We'd love to buy it. And she contacted us and told us the rest of the story. So this was a $120,000 property in like new condition. It had a 4.25% interest rate loan on it, 1 year into a 30-year term with payments of $577 a month. We took over the payments on the house. The payments were current. They didn't want anything. They knew they had just bought it, didn't have any equity. We sold this house with seller financing. We marked it up about 10 or 12%, which was fine. I mean, there wasn't much equity in the property, but again, you're only talking about a markup of around 15,000. Our buyers gave us 10,000 down. We financed the 125 at 9% on a 40-year note. Our buyers' payments of 964 gives us 387 a month in cash flow. And if our buyer refinances us in 36 months, our back end payoff will be around $13,000. So a profit breakdown, again, guys, this is a low, no equity, low priced home, lower end home. The median price for a home in the United States at this point, and this was about a year and a half ago. The median priced home right now is about $350. Again, we're talking about a $125,000 house here. But our profit breakdown, we had a $10,000 upfront profit because we had zero back payments to make up and zero to the seller. We had minimal closing costs. We used a mobile notary to close, which, as I recall, was around $150. Then recording the deed was another $20. So our closing costs were under $200 on the deal. 14,000 in cash flow over 36 months at 387, a $13,000 back end in 36 months if our buyer refinance at that point, which will give us a profit of over $37,000 on a zero equity deal. I mean, just a nice little house and a perfect example of about how no equity can still be very profitable for you. So what about the due on sale clause? Okay. The biggest worry with new investors seems to be the due on sale clause. And just let me tell you guys, while it does exist and is something that must be considered, back when I used to do multi-day boot camps, I would bring in the loan officers, the bank officers from all the banks that I worked with. And I had lines of credit and bank accounts with several of these banks, anything from small local banks to big regionals like BB&T. And all these guys would come in and talk about the due on sale clause and say, yes, it exists. Yes, it's in there. Do we care? No, we don't. They all said pretty much the same thing. That even if you call them and told them, we're going to take over the payments, we're going to start making sure, Joe hasn't been able to make his payments. If we don't step in, you're going to get the house back. What do you want? And they all pretty much said the same thing. We would say, send us the money. That's really what we care about. While it can be exercised, absolutely, will it? I've done over 500 sub-2 transactions, and I've never, and I mean never, between small banks, big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, it doesn't matter. I've never, ever had anyone say anything to me about a due on sale clause. We handle these things properly, and that's key. Typically, if there's a screw up or anything that would flag the loan or bring any attention to the loan, it's going to be, number one, not making the payments. If you make the payments on time, you're probably not going to have any trouble. The second thing is going to be handling insurance, and that's a long subject. We've got several articles at sub2deals.com, and I've done a couple of podcasts on that. But if you handle the insurance properly, and handling it properly means, first of all, making sure it's insured. Secondly, you want to make sure that that seller's name is on your new policy. And you definitely want a new policy because when your seller had the house, it was more than 99% likely that it was an owner-occupied dwelling. So they're going to have a homeowner's policy. When you buy that house, whether you sell it with seller financing, rent it out, do whatever, unless you live in it yourself, it's not going to be an owner-occupied policy that you need anymore. It's going to be a dwelling policy, a landlord policy, a fire policy, whatever you want to call it. And some people make the mistake of leaving the seller's insurance in place. which isn't going to be valid anymore. You want to get a new policy naming either you or your entity or your trust or however you take title as the primary loss payee, but making sure that that seller's name is also on that insurance policy as an additional insured. Okay. That's going to give the lender the warm fuzzies. That's going to, when they see the new insurance policy with a new owner in the primary loss payee space, they're going to continue to look down that policy and go, oh, okay, here's Joe Seller's name. He must just be transferring this into another form of ownership for estate planning or what have you. So that's what you want to have done. Those are the real keys. Make the payments on time, handle the insurance policy correctly, and you're going to be okay. And I can talk to you guys more about that. If you guys jump in our sub-2 group over there, listen to the podcast, read the articles at sub2deals.com. They will step by step you through how to handle that insurance policy, but if you do those things, the due on sale really just isn't an issue. So guys, what are the secrets of buying subject to? Everybody wants the secret. They want to know the shortcut. Well, the secrets are, first of all, to know your technique. And education is key. We teach people and answer questions every single day over in the Sub2 forum. So jump in there with your Sub2 questions. We'll be glad to help you. Joining and maintaining a membership in groups like REI USA, where you can learn all types of different techniques and things. Those things are just so important. Number 2, plan and execute consistent marketing. You need to market on a local level, whether that's bandit signs, whether that's wearing t-shirts with "We Buy Houses" or baseball caps, using tons of business cards, magnetics on your car. Everybody needs to know, wherever you are, whether you're in South Carolina, whether you're in Tennessee, whatever, your local area, everybody should immediately think of your name when they think of someone needing to buy or sell a house in your area. If you're doing that, you're doing your job correctly. Learn to recognize a motivated seller. What are their pain points? Why do they need to sell? You can waste your time talking to unmotivated sellers a lot, and that's common when you're getting started. But learn to recognize what a motivated seller looks like. Listen for those key phrases. I just want it gone. Yeah, when you ask about taking over payments, would you do that? I've heard people say that. Would you really do that? Well, maybe. Tell me a little bit more about the house. But learn to ask the key questions to determine if they're motivated and if they're the right seller for you. Evaluate your deals based on your goals. Remember the examples I gave you guys? There was one house that I could have bought for 70 cents on the dollar, but it wasn't worth keeping because the payments were so high. So we flipped it. If it doesn't have equity, then your option there is going to be a keeper for you. It's got to have a really good interest rate loan with payments that let you make money. If it doesn't have a good payment, there's got to be equity so you can flip that thing. So you can either retail flip it or rehab it and sell it or whatever. So learn to evaluate your deals. But the biggest secret is taking action. It's, when I have a student or somebody email me or whatever saying, finding leads is a big challenge for me today. There just aren't any leads out there. My question to them is always, how many Zillow sellers have you talked to today? How many bandit signs did you put out? Do you have magnetics on your car? Did you mail out any postcards? Have you been driving for dollars and contacting those people that have empty houses? If you're not doing all of those things each and every day, don't tell me that you have a problem generating leads, because you need to be doing those things. If you do all of those things on a consistent basis, you will generate leads. So, will you take action today to achieve financial freedom? Have you talked to a seller today? Have you done any of those things that we talked about earlier? I want to thank you guys for showing up with me today and talking about subject to and creative financing. Remember, we've got a ton of free tools to help you at sub2deals.com. We've got free articles for you. We've got free tools for you, resources pages. There's a ton of stuff there that won't cost you a dime. Sub2 cool stuff. Visit us over there and download those 12 or 15 absolutely free tools that we've got. Like I said, anything from ebooks on negotiation to actual business plan that I use to secure $500,000 in lines of credit, and just a ton of other stuff. The Sub2 Forum, that's our free Facebook group. We'd love to have you over there. Join the group, introduce yourself, and ask questions. We answer questions over there every day. Our Sub2 podcast that we put out every week with either our Real Investor series with real investors from all over the country sharing what's working where they're at and how they generate leads and buy houses, to our expert series, people like Bill Bronchick or Bill Walston, who are experts in their fields, talking about how to use land trust, how to structure creative finance, whether Dodd-Frank is an issue or not. We talk about all kinds of topics there. So check that out, and also our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber on our channel over there, and we share a ton of free content every week there as well. So if you guys have any questions, drop those in. We've got a few minutes left. I'll be glad to hang out and answer any of those questions for you. And otherwise, what can I do to help? Thanks, Colleen. I appreciate that. I try to give the best information that I can. Real estate has been, in fact, I was talking to my wife about it this morning, that real estate literally just saved me at a point where, I didn't have a horrible job. I worked a lot. I made good money, but I just wasn't able to live the life that I wanted to live. I never saw my kids and that sort of thing. And it is all about lifestyle. It's not about money. It's about the things that the money gives you, the freedom to live the life that you want to live. And if I can just help other people realize that, that's really what I want to do. It's just something about knowing that you can just go out and create your own destiny. Any thoughts about pulling a list and direct mailing or texting voice drops? I got to tell you, Devin, pulling list and direct calling, I think, are great. And even mailing, we've never done mass mailings, thousands of postcards or anything. I've used I call that a shotgun approach. And a lot of wholesalers do that. They'll pull a list of every house that fits a certain criteria in a zip code, and they'll mail 5,000 postcards or 10,000 postcards. And that can be pricey. It'll cost you several $1,000s to do that. Will you get a deal from it? Probably. And if you want to do that, that's okay. I've always been more of a keep it small, keep it all kind of person. And I would rather do what I call a laser targeted, just a rifle list, like the MLS listings that have been listed over, like, let's just say you go in, I don't know what market you're in, Devin, but let's just say that you get MLS access and you pull a list of every listing that's been listed over 90 days, that's vacant, blah, blah, blah. You may pull a list of 5 houses. Okay. If you do a mailing to them saying, hey, I noticed your house has been listed for a few months and hasn't sold. We can buy and close within 7 days, blah, blah, blah. Will you buy a house off that 5-house list? Maybe. You just don't know until you talk to them. We tried mass texting. We didn't do ringless voicemail. We did mass texting for a few months, and I'll tell you the responses to that, some of them were brutal. I think people don't like that impersonal approach. I think during a buyer's market, it may be more palatable because people are more motivated. In our market that we're in right now, people are very picky, and people just in our social media world today aren't as nice as they used to be. So I don't like the mass texting. I think direct calling is much better. The response is much better. And that's what we do. We do more calling and just direct contact with the seller. And I think that makes a difference in a world of 10,000 texts. When somebody actually calls you and tries to have a conversation with you, I think that matters. And again, you got to remember, I'm the buy one house a month guy. I'm not looking to buy 20 this month. I want to buy one. And I'll have a presentation I do, and I'll do that probably for you guys next month on the 600,000 a year income buying one house a month. It's interesting. A lot of people don't that haven't heard about it. It's eye opening that you can actually still have a life and only work 10 or 15 hours a month. So yeah, I appreciate that. So anything else you guys have, I'll be glad to answer it for you. Help you out any way I can. So appreciate you guys joining me on Saturday afternoon. If you guys haven't heard about our event that we're doing next month, it's called Sub-2 Palooza. We were going to do a live event in New Orleans, but this COVID the numbers have really increased. And so we've converted it to a virtual event. And you guys can go to sub2palooza.com and check it out if you'd like to. We're going to have about a dozen of the very best, most respected speakers in the country that are going to be there. It's really low cost, and we're going to have a great time, even though we're going to have to do it virtually. But you guys can take a look. It's going to be some excellent training. Bill Bronchick, Richard Roop, John Burley, Scott Horn. We're going to have a really good time. So you guys go take a look at that if you'd like. If you guys don't have any other questions, we're going to wrap this thing up and let you guys get back to your Saturday. Again, I appreciate you coming out and joining us. I enjoy being your creative finance teacher at REI USA. If you guys have any questions, y'all can email me at william@sub2deals.com. Any ideas on a presentation that you'd like to see, I'll be glad to put something together just for you guys. Okay, looks like that's it. So we're going to let you guys get back to your Saturday. Have a great one, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.